Welcome to Aging Gracefully, where seniors are celebrated and growing old is appreciated and respected. My name is Kathryn Eyring, and you might see me around town as I teach yoga and I teach senior strength and balance classes. And I have so many opportunities to meet the most wonderful aging adults. Today, I have as a guest Greg Piscura, who's not really such an aging adult.
Well, I'm getting there.
You might have an AARP card or
That's
something
right.
by now, but still you might not be classified as a senior. But I know you because you do a lot of entertaining
That's
to
correct.
senior living facilities.
Yes,
You
I
have
do.
an amazing voice, and thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, Kathryn. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I recall when we last met, this opportunity was put out there, and I was excited to do it.
And I recently saw you at the Lively Avon Lakers group,
Oh, yes.
which is awesome fun.
Right.
So if anybody is watching this show, I hope they will maybe show up too.
That's right.
Yeah, because it's really a fun group too.
It sure is. They have a good time.
Yeah, and we had a great time that day.
Yes.
A lot of women were giggling about how nice looking you
Oh,
were,
I don't
and
know
it
about that.
started the whole table going, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
And you were a good sport about it.
Oh, I loved it. Are you kidding me? It was wonderful. They have a good time, and I get to interact with them and sing for them. So it was great.
So let's talk a little bit about you and
Okay.
how you ever even got into that. But let's start way back,
Okay.
childhood, your background a
Sure.
little bit.
Yeah. I was raised on the east side of Cleveland, East 148th and Harvard. So I'm certainly an east side guy all the time. And my family and I ended up in Bedford, where I graduated from Bedford High School and then went to little old Hiram College. And when I got there, I went there for a number of reasons. But among them was, first of all, it was a good school for teachers. And secondly, guys that weren't Division I athletes like myself could find a school where you could continue to play baseball. So I did that there, as well as it prepared me for teaching. I got my degree there and certification, and I ended up being a school teacher until retirement. So it all worked out.
And I know you loved being a teacher.
Yes, I did.
And you did coaching as well.
Yes, I did. There's an old saying that says, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's exactly how I felt. And it's the truth. I mean,
wonderful.
people were shocked when I did retire because I loved it. First of all, I had the pleasure of working in a wonderful school district in Orange on the east side. And you get some of the most wonderful students you can imagine. And I sometimes say that one of the things how life is, anytime I need anything in the medical world, you can bet I'm going to look up and it's going to be someone I either taught or coached. I can still remember once I needed a root canal, and as I was leaning back in the chair, the doctor looked at me and said, "Coach?" And I said, "Greg." His name was Greg too. So, but those are the kind of people and kids that I got to teach and coach, and it was great.
That's wonderful. So do you want to tell me about why you took an early retirement?
Well,
The
opportunity was there, and there were some personal issues that went into it. I loved it so, but the fact of the matter was I lost my brother. He was a teacher, and he died of pancreatic cancer. And my two older brothers, the four of us grew up, obviously, but then there's three of us left.
4 boys.
The 4 boys, no girls, and even the dog's name was Spike. Well,
Your poor mother.
Oh, and this is the story that everybody can relate to. All this going on in one bathroom, but that's for another show. But anyway, one of the events that I really do remember was we'd go out to breakfast on Sundays, the three of us, and my brothers would say, "What are you waiting for? If you have the opportunity to retire, you ought to retire." And I said, "Well, I love it." And they said, and I did end up retiring, and then I kept coaching. So 6 years after retiring, I still went to school every day to coach either basketball or baseball or soccer. So I kept busy. And then one day they said, Greg, we're your older brothers. We've known you your whole life. You're a better singer than you are a coach. They give it to me straight. So
That's great.
I took their advice.
And so it's just been a few years that you've
Yeah.
actually been on the senior circuit, let's
Yes.
say, and entertaining.
Yes. I mean, previous to that, I was more of a weekend warrior when it came to singing. Like a lot of folks, I ended up in bands and playing little jobs in restaurants and bars and things like that. But I took quite a long break from that. And then when this came along, I was able to get back into singing again. And it's been a terrific experience for me.
It seems like you started with one or two, and then after that, you just became popular, and now I say you're sought after.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you this. I was never a salesman. And so I can still remember the winter of 2015 when I made the decision to do this. I would sit on the couch all afternoon with my dog, Boomer. And he was a good boy, and he'd sit there. And the whole afternoon, I would just be making, I think, what salespeople call cold calls. And I'll tell you what, I have a big respect for salespeople because, what's it about? 1 out of 10, you get a bite, and somebody says they'll give you a chance. But it all worked out. But that's how it started. I would just work my way through the yellow pages trying to find somebody to say yes.
And then after you said yes, it was just a matter of renewing and going back over and over.
Right.
So.
I cross my fingers, you know, that it can go for as long as it. I'd love for it to keep going, but I've enjoyed every bit of it for the past 3 years, and I meet some unbelievable people.
Yes.
I know your show is about seniors.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I admire the whole idea of a television show focused on seniors, and I admire seniors.
I know you do.
Yes.
I know you do. That's why I love that you're willing to come on
Oh.
here. I know you have wonderful stories, just
I
like
do.
I do.
I do. May I share something that just came to mind?
Yes.
I sometimes say to an audience that much of the audience that I perform for has been rightfully classified as the greatest generation. And I'll mention that to them. I'll remind them of that. Folks, you're members of the greatest generation, and we know the big reasons why. But you know what? There's another reason why you're the greatest generation, because in my opinion, the members of that generation wrote America's greatest music. The greatest music, and nobody talks about that. And so I'll sing, the majority of the songs come from composers from that generation. And I'm sorry, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and you can just bust out into song anytime you want while
Oh,
we're
well.
talking. Just feel free, okay?
I might blow out the microphones.
One of the things we've talked about too is the older adults at these senior centers or anywhere where you might be. It might be a luncheon or something
Right.
as well. But we see a whole variety of abilities, some who are really having a hard time physically, and others who are doing so much better. And I asked you yourself if you exercise,
Yeah.
do you try to keep yourself up with your strength, and what have you noticed as well with seniors too?
There's no doubt that the most active seniors are just doing, all things considered the same, are doing great. And as for myself, my father-in-law was the big inspiration, and rest his soul, I love Joe tremendously. And starting at about 70 years old, and he passed away at about 96, this guy was the most regimented. He would work out every day. He had to do something every day. He'd be walking through the metro parks, and when the snow was bad, Joe was known to walk around the basement downstairs. And I looked at that and thought, there's something to this.
That expression, use it or lose it.
Absolutely.
I
So I've
agree.
been on a routine like that for a long time. You know, and one of the advantages of being an afternoon performer is that in the morning, I usually take some time to go to the gym or take a walk or do something physical. And I know the seniors do this as well.
This is great. This morning I was teaching at the Anchor. That's our new rec facility right here in Avon Lake, and the group of seniors were saying to me they don't feel like they have a lot of places to go where seniors gather specifically for exercise. So it's a wonderful opportunity right here in Avon Lake. I always like to bring that up because it's a new facility, and seniors that are watching the show may not know. We have a place that's really pretty inexpensive and geared to people over 60 as well, the classes that I teach. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Well, they'd be wise to take advantage of that.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, because I've noticed the same thing. And I know, in fact, I have a good friend who's 95 who's been on the show who exercises every day.
Amazing.
Goes into the weight room and uses weights. Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's very, very good.
Right.
So how about community involvement? I always like to ask about that too, because I've seen that with the seniors as well, those that stay connected and active.
Well, during my years when I was, my son was growing up, like a lot of guys, I was very involved in the athletics in the hometown. And so I was volunteering to work with the youngsters, and would also be involved with, in the summertime, there were baseball camps. A lot of it was around sports. But from T-ball until they were pretty old, I had the opportunity to be with those kids. And that was a wonderful part of it. And I'm always so appreciative of those that do volunteer, because so many of those kids I was with benefited from that. And in fact, as a coach in the schools, where you have a contract to coach, I made it a point every year to say, after a big win, I would say something like, and by the way, fellas, let's not forget the fact that one of the reasons we're able to win this game is that somebody volunteered a great deal to get you at this level of skill that you're at. It's not like being with me for 2 weeks, all of a sudden you're able to do what you do. So volunteers are very important.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love community involvement. I just think it's so important. It's good for the soul. It's good for the community. It's wonderful. So, how about a story or two? Do you have anything in mind that you might tell us?
I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have to rub elbows with folks in Northeast Ohio. And I've always said that I know you're a writer. I wish I was a writer, because I have a lot of great things to write down, and if you don't write them down, you might forget them. So as you asked me that question, the first one I think of is this beautiful lady, and I'll never forget it. There I was performing. It was an evening show, which I'm not too crazy about. I like to work in the afternoon. But it was an evening show, and just as I finish it, she comes up, I'm getting ready to leave, and she says, "Greg, please don't leave. I have something I want to show you." And she goes off, and I'm still putting away my stuff, and she comes back to me. She says, "I went to school with your father. I knew I did." He says, he was at John Adams in Cleveland and graduated in 43, correct? I said, "Yes." And she opened the yearbook and showed me his picture and his brother's picture right there in the yearbook. And then she went on to say all sorts of flattering things. But she's so sharp. I still see her every other month, and it was a wonderful experience. I have another guy. I'm working, and I had mentioned my ethnicity. I'm happy to do that, and I talk about, I'm an Irish Slovak, okay? And I happened maybe I was singing "Oh Danny Boy," I don't know, but I happened to mention that to the crowd. So again, as I'm at the end of the show, a fella says to me, "Don't leave, I have something for you." And he comes back with this green cookbook, and it was called the Czechoslovakian American Cookbook. And he says, "Here, I want you to have this." It's the same cookbook my mother had. Now, my mother's, the cover was gone. It was exactly the same. So we now have my mother's cookbook and a brand new edition that this nice fellow gave me. It didn't really replace it because you couldn't really let go of Mom's either. Right. So
that's great.
There's that story. There's a lot of stories. I meet some amazing people.
So you were generally east and west side at some of the senior apartments?
Yeah, I'll play the larger jobs for me are the community centers. Many of the community centers all around Northeast Ohio, like in Solon and Parma and Seven Hills, and there's quite a few, Macedonia, et cetera, et cetera. Those are big jobs. You feel like you're in Las Vegas.
Well,
And then you work.
they really draw a lot of...
There's a lot of folks
Okay.
that come. And that's always exciting. But I get just as big a thrill working smaller venues. And it is amazing how many wonderful senior communities there are in the Cleveland area. They're fabulous, and they can be in Akron, they can be in the west side of Cleveland, on the east side, downtown.
Some of the west side, maybe apartments or that?
Yeah, well, and there are a few apartments that we play, but even out here in Avon Lake, Independence Village and Normandy and Harbor Court, and there's quite a few. Brighton Gardens.
Okay.
And now, trust me, 3 years ago, I didn't know these senior communities, but they're wonderful.
Yeah. They're great fun places to be for people like you and me. I know.
And
I
here's
love it.
another thing that I mentioned to you, I don't work a lot of evenings, speaking about seniors. So let's say I do finish the 7:30 show. I can't wait to get home and, go to bed. These people, not every time, but I'll look at the board, it'll say, okay, Greg's gonna entertain, and then they're gonna go off and do another activity or watch a video together, it's amazing.
Yeah.
They just have so much energy.
Maybe they've been napping in the day.
Maybe that's the secret. It does amaze me, though.
So tell me a little bit more about the music that you would typically sing.
Okay,
Maybe throw out a few songs that...
sure. I tend to sing, if you say Sinatra music, people get a
Okay.
pretty good handle on it, but it's bigger than that, but it's basically that era music. But having grown up in the 60s, I've also been known to get into some Motown music in the top 40s, but my sweet spot would be the Sinatra music. Tony Bennett, Vic Damone, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and there are many, many others. And it's the Great American Songbook. And there's songs, and I frequently will say this to the audiences, you're going to hear this show, and I know that you're going to say, boy, that's a pretty good song, and I haven't heard that. But the amazing thing, Kathryn, is when I forget the words, if I read their lips, it helps me dramatically. And they save me because they remember the words. And it's a marvelous thing. Here's a name. This is my most recent. May I share another story with you?
Yes, please. And I'm still waiting for you to bust in this song
Well-
anytime. You just feel free.
It could happen.
Okay.
But another factor is there are a lot of wonderful musicians that I come up with, that I'll meet. And they're unbelievable. They're piano players. They don't need music. Frequently, I'll perform for a group, and I can think of two places in particular. This lady will get up and she'll go over to the spinet, another place, it's a baby grand piano. She's playing the songs that I just got through singing, no music. One of those ladies last month said to me, Greg, you remind me of somebody. I said, who do I remind you of? She says, and by the way, her name is Diane. Who do I remind you of, Diane? She says, there was a singer named Don Cornell. Now, I'm sorry, I had a vague recollection of who that was, but through a little research, I found out that he was a singer in a famous orchestra, Swing and Sway with, and when I say that to an audience, in unison they say, Sammy Kaye. Well, Don Cornelius was just a guitar player, but he went on to be quite a singer. And so she gave me this song that I had to learn. Now, it's a very loud song, so I really can't do it. But it's called It Isn't Fair. That's an example of a great song. And someday, if the audience who's watching this, they can request that I'd be happy to I'll have to give them a tissue first, though, because it's quite a tearjerker.
Oh.
But yeah,
How
a
about
lot
a
of
happy
great
song?
songs.
How about a happy 60s song? I love 60s music too. When I teach the strength and balance classes,
Yes.
we do a lot of 60s music.
There, I said it again. Forgive me for wanting you so. There's one thing I want you to know. I love you till heaven knows when. There I've said it again. There, that's.
And see where the women were just.
Oh, I don't know about that. You said 60s. Here's a funny story about that. I tell the story when I sing it. Do you want to know what knocked that song out of #1 in Cleveland in 1964? I want to hold your hand. Poor old Bobby Vinton. That's what took it out of #1, and the Beatle explosion started.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I love your music. I love your singing. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to hit you up now with your best advice. Greg's best advice,
Yeah.
whether it comes from you or what you've learned from all these amazing seniors that you've surrounded yourself with.
Yeah, I can do that.
You ready for this?
My
All right.
best advice, and by the way, it's against, those that know me know that I can be a bit of a recluse. I like to just keep things under control and stay home. Sorry, but that's the truth, and I have to be honest. I've learned that these folks that get involved, it pays such dividends. They make such friends. Sometimes in their activities, I'll be coming in and they're doing an activity. I feel guilty starting to sing because they're having a good time as it is.
Like you're interrupting, huh?
Yes, and so my advice is get involved with these other folks. It's so healthy, and you get connected, and that would be some advice I would share.
Yes, and I was going to ask, what do you think the secret to longevity is? But I think that really has
Absolutely.
been proven to be it.
There's no doubt about it, and even the music therapy. I've read articles that the songs that I'm singing and performing, that it's very helpful to them to hear the songs and remember the lyrics and the emotions. And it's excellent for them. And so some places actually have music therapists that are experts in this.
Right.
So there's a magic to it.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
I've seen people with dementia in my classes who are sitting very quiet until we get the right music going.
Absolutely.
And then they are moving right along.
Yes.
All right, next question, Greg.
Yeah.
You've definitely had heartbreak. All of us have by this
Yeah,
age anyway. What do you think is the best medicine for heartbreak?
To get back in the game.
There you go.
If you get your heart broken, you just have to get up and get back out there. That would be my advice.
I agree. How about you? Do you have a goal age to live toward now that you've seen so many? I'm sure you've seen numerous people who are over 100.
Yeah, I have. In fact, I'm working a birthday party next month for, his name's Bill. He will be 103.
Oh my gosh.
So your question, goal for longevity, I don't think this is a unique answer, but I think it's just as long as I'm living a healthy and happy life, I'd love to keep on.
Keep on.
But that's what's important.
Do you think there's something that young families just don't get in today's world? Because you've really seen the difference, older folks
Yeah,
and the
I
young
have.
ones.
I think young families and young people would really benefit from spending time with some seniors and on a regular basis, establishing a relationship and doing more listening than talking. I know that in my own life, Grandma McKinney, I would go cut her grass, and Grandma would then, my responsibility was, because she had one of those postage stamp lawns, don't get me wrong, it didn't take very long to cut her grass. But my responsibility was to sit there and learn. And I learned a great deal about life in America and what it was like during the Great Depression. And I think the young people would really, and it shaped me a great deal. I think they'd benefit from establishing some relationships in the senior communities that we've mentioned. In fact, I've seen that. There's one in Shaker Heights that I visit where they bring in the kids from the high school regularly to mingle and socialize and perform. And then when I perform, they sit right along with them, and I'll make them part of the show. Like I'll say, you don't know that song, do you? So that would be my advice.
And
get
I
involved
love
with
that
them.
advice.
Yeah.
And it made me think, as you were talking about such fun memories, I have the same experience in my background. My grandparents meant so
Right.
much to me, and maybe that is part of why we have such an appreciation
Yep.
for aging adults as
No
well.
doubt.
We have that respect already instilled in us.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think you kind of answered another question too, how community can help an older adult feel more valued.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Right.
Spend some time with them,
Right.
pay a little more attention.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could get a teenager to listen, what would you say?
I would say one of the keys to life is to appreciate older people, the senior community. And so take advantage of that and spend some time and have some fun with them, because you'd be surprised how much you'll gain from it.
The word fun, I
Yeah.
agree.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. I have sometimes laughed until I've just
Oh,
cried.
they're hysterical. Kathryn, one of the things when I work a birthday party, I'll ask after we celebrate, and I'll take the microphone and I'll share it out. I'll say, okay, is anybody in the mood? Is there anyone who'd like to share some advice for a long and healthy life and happy life? And I go around, and I used to say, when we were kids, there was a guy named Art Linkletter.
Oh, I
And
remember Art.
he made a whole career out of kids will say the darndest things. Well, I'm here to
right.
tell you that Cleveland seniors will tell you the darndest secrets to a long and happy life. And I'll just leave it at that.
That's great. And I've got to come along to one of your
Oh,
parties.
it's hysterical.
So what do you think the best gift someone could give to a senior citizen?
Time,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I agree.
Benefit, and it's a two-way street, without a doubt. They're of such value. Hey, listen, I'm 61 years old. I feel I'm still of value, and I plan on continuing that, and I know they are as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I love all your insights. Thank you for giving us a little bit of song. Your voice is beautiful. It's been so much fun.
Thank you, Kathryn.